Hey, Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Kiddushin. Daf Lamed. We're going to start on the bottom of Chavtes Amud Beis. Amr Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said, "Haida Difna Michavrai." The reason why I'm better off than my friends is the Nasivna B'Shitzar. I got married at 16. You have a Nasivna B'Arbisar. If I had only got married at 14, Havamino was Satan Geira Beinecha. I would have been able to say to the Satan, "This is an arrow in your eyes." Meaning to say, I would have rebuked him. The Satan is the Yetzer Hara, and he wouldn't have been able to cause me to sin if I got married earlier. Obviously, the arrow in the eyes is a literary euphemism. Amalei Ravo Rabbi Nasim Barami Adiyada Chal Tzavarei Debarech. While your hand is still on the neck of your son, that's when he still accepts your rebuke. Then you should marry him off, meaning to say before he gets too old to listen to you. And when is that? From 16 to 22. Prior to that, he's too young, and after that, he's not going to listen to you. Say some 18 to 24. This is the machokas amongst the Tanaim, as we state. And says in Proverbs, educate a child according to his way. Means say, what age should he get married? Well, it depends on the child. One says from 16 to 22. One says from 18 to 24. So, until what degree is a person obligated to teach his son Torah? Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. So Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, like Zvulun ben Dan, Shelimdo Avi Aviv Mikra, Mishnah V'Talmud Halachos V'Agados. So Zvulun ben Dan says, Shmuel says that the assumption is how much you have to teach him Torah. So Zvulun ben Dan, that his grandfather taught him Bible, Mishnah, Talmud, laws, and homilies. So Mesai, so is that really the case that you really have to teach him all that? We have a brayso that says Lamdu Mikra, Emu Lamdu Mishnah. That if you teach him the Bible, you don't have to. The father is not obligated to teach him the Mishnah. So why do you say he has to teach him all this? So the Gemara explains. Amarava Mikra Torah. And Rava says when it says in that brayso Mikra that you have to teach him that refers only to the biblical verses. So why do we say you have to teach him all of these things? The Mishnah, the Talmud, the Halachos, the Agados. Gemara explains. Oh, so he misunderstood what the proof text of Shmuel from Zvulun ben Dan was. Kizvulun ben Dan, v'lo Kizvulun ben Dan. Kizvulun ben Dan shalimdu avi abiv. Excuse me, like Zvulun ben Dan, who was taught by his grandfather. Meaning to say, you don't have to do the extent of what Zvulun ben Dan did, which was all the Bible, the Mishnah, the Talmud. You don't have to teach the child Bible, but even the grandfather has an obligation to teach, and that's what happened in the case of Zvulun ben Dan. It's not just the father, but even the grandfather. Gemara says, is the grandfather really obligated to teach the grandchild Torah? You have to teach your children, not your grandchildren. So what do I do with the verse? What about the verse that says in Deuteronomy and Devarim that you have to teach your sons and your grandchildren? Or that's not an obligation, but it's just teaching us something. Whoever teaches his son Torah, the verse is teaching us, it says, though he taught his son, his grandson, until the end of time. If you teach your son Torah, your grandson Torah, it's like you're part of the chain of tradition. So if that's the case, why is Shmuel saying that a grandfather has to teach his grandson Torah? So Gemara explains, who the Amar ki Haitana. Shmuel is telling us in accordance with the following Tanya, the Tanya we maratemo samas benechem Eliel benechem you have to teach your grandchild. Teach your son and your grandchildren. So Shmuel is saying that you do have to teach your grandchild, like the following brayso, but you're not required to teach your daughters. Again, as we said yesterday, that was in the time before the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim in the early 20th century agreed with Sarah Schneer that we now have to set up schools for Jewish girls as well. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Kol Melamed Es Ben Benot Torah Ma'al Avakosav Kilu Kibul Me'ar Sinai. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says whoever teaches his grandson Torah, we're going to view him as though he received the Torah straight from Sinai. As it states, V'datam L'vanecha V'nei Vanecha. You should make known your ways to your children and to your grandchildren. So somebody who teaches his grandson Torah, we view it as though he received the Torah from Har Sinai. Who received the Torah? The grandfather or the grandson? I saw both explanations amongst the commentaries. Some say the grandfather because he's part of the Sinai experience, teaching the grandchild. Some say it's the grandchild because it's like he's receiving it back from the chain of tradition, back from Sinai. And it says right after that verse, like the day you stood before God at Sinai. Found once Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi of all the Amoraim is one of the most passionate, compassionate. He's famous from the Gemara in Ksubos where he takes care of the sick. So one time he found Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Deshadi Disna Reisha. He was walking around with a disna on his head. A disna is like it's an improper scarf that was not the appropriate way for a great rabbi to dress. Rabbi Abba saw that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi was wearing this on his head, becoming and he's schlepping the kids to the school. Amarle, Michael, I said, what's going on here? This is the way a great rabbi behaves. Amarle, Yeshua ben Levi says, "Mizuter ma'idachsev odatom uvanecha." You think it's insignificant that it says in the Torah, "You shall teach your children," and then right afterwards it says, "Yom asher amatov ne'Hashem alkecha b'chorev." Like the day you taught God, it means bringing my children to school is like standing before Hashem at Sinai. From that point on, he didn't eat any breakfast. He didn't eat meat for breakfast. He didn't eat any meat. Until first he reviewed the studies with his children from what they learned the day before. Rashi says, and he added on some of his own Kiddushin. He understood all of a sudden the importance of that task. Rabbi Baravuna also didn't eat any food until he first brought his children to school. I mean to say, he viewed this as his primary task was to take the children to school. Much more important than eating his breakfast. What do we do with the passage that says, you shall teach your children? Don't read it as vishinantem, because it could have said vishanitem, so don't read it that, but read it as vishilashtem. What does that mean? In thirds, a person should always divide his years into threes: shlish b'mikra, shlish b'mishnah, shlish b'talmud. So 1/3 Mishnah, 1/3 Mikra, 1/3 Talmud. So the Gemara asked the question: well, if that's the case, mi yada kamachai, who's going to realize how long they're going to live? So lo tzricha yomi. So no, we need it for every single day. Every day you should divide it into thirds. And my son Shia sent me a voice message this morning. He says, what does it mean? Pirish bekuntris yemei Shabbos. The Rashi says you divide the days of the week into three, meaning to the first 2 days are Mikra, the next 2 days are Mishnah, and the next 2 days are Gemara. And Toso says, and this is the voice note Shia sent me quoting the Toso, he says, I don't like it. Because again, how long do you know if you're going to make it through the whole week? And so therefore, Tozo says, therefore, you should divide every single day into thirds. Therefore, Tikim Besider Rav Amram Gon, Moshe Anu Noagim, B'kol Yom Kodem Psuki D'Zimra, Lamar Mikra Mishnah Gemara. Every day before Psuki D'Zimra, we say a little bit of the Bible, we say the Mishnah, we say the Gemara, we say Ezim. Come on, this is part of the Kabbanos. So Rabbeinu Tam Piresh, but Rabbeinu Tam explains Shanu Somchen Ahad Amrinan that we rely upon that which we say in Sanhedrin, Bavel Balua, B'Mikra, B'Mishnah, U'B'Gemara. The Gemara Bavel Balul Mikulam, meaning to say that the Gemara has everything. The Gemara has Mikra, the Gemara has Mishnah, the Gemara has obviously Talmud in it. So that's what we do. When we do the Talmud, we have all the three of these things in it. So Fikach Nikru Rishonim. So this is a little bit of a non sequitur. Some try to connect it to the previous Gemara. Rashi says it's a non sequitur, but therefore it's a passage on Talmud which is very near and dear to me. Therefore, the earlier authorities, the early rabbis, were called sofrim, scribes. Shayu sofrim kol otziu shebetorah, that they used to count up all the letters of the Torah. Shayu omrim, they used to say vav digachon, the vav of the word digachon, that in Parashat Shmini about the that vav of Gachon is the midway point of letters in the Torah. Darosh Darash, the words Darosh Darash, two words in a row. They're both Darosh Darash, seek, and our custom is to put them on two different lines. One is the last one on the top line, then that first one on the next line. Chatzi and Shaltevas. That's the midway point of words. Viskaleach Shel Psukim. The pasuk of the Hiskaleach, that is about Mitzorah, that is the midway point of verses. Yachar Semena Chazir Miyar, that ayin of Ya'ar is the Chatzion Shaltom. That's the midway point of the Psalms. Hurachim Mechaper Avon Chatzir of the Psukim, and the Hurachim Mechaper Avon is the midway point of verses in Tehillim. By Rav Yosef, Vav Digachon Me'agi, so Me'agi, so well. The Vav of Dachon, which side is it on? Is it on the first half or the second half? So we have an odd number of letters, but he didn't know that. So we have 304,705 letters in the Torah, although there are different, we'll see in a moment, there are different counts. Amrulay Nasi Sefer Torah v'Namninu. So they said to him, let's bring a Torah and count it. There was another incident where they brought a Torah and they counted it. Rashi says, I don't know where that incident was. So Rav Yosef responds, no, inu b'ki b'chaseros v'yaseros. They were experts. They were experts in chaseros v'yaseros. They were experts in letters that were missing and that were included. So they were experts in it. And so therefore, they knew this, but we're not experts in that, and so therefore we can't include it. Because meaning to say there are certain words which have an extra vav or missing a vav or a letter yud. So since we're not experts in that, so therefore since we're not experts, we don't know that. The Shagas Aryeh says for this reason. The Shagas Aryeh says for this reason. We're not going. We don't even know how to write a Sefer Torah today, but that's a single position, minority position. By Rav Yosef, Iskaleach mehagis or mehagis. So what about? Okay, so what about the pasuk of Iskaleach? Which side of the Torah is that on? So he says, at least with respect to psukim, we could come and count. So the Gemara says, no, psukim nami l'bekina. We also are not experts about the verses. By the way, this is one of the many reasons why I'm skeptical about like the codes. People say, oh, you count the certain number of letters this way, because there are different traditions about the exact number of letters and the manner in which the letters the words are written. So the Gemara says the Kiyasar of Achabarada Amar b'Marava Pasku I cross or Tlas Psuke. In Eretz Yisrael, they divided up this verse into three separate verses. Yomer Hashem Moshe Inei Anochi Ba'Elacha Ba'ava Anan. It was three separate verses. Tan Rabbanan Chameshes Alafim U'Shmona Meot U'Shmona Mishmona Psukim. There are 5,888 verses. Have a Psuke, Sefer Torah. Yes, there are Tehillim, but there are Tehillim as Shmona. Tehillim has 8 more than the Torah, and Chazar Mimenu Divrei Yamim Shmonan. And Divrei Yamim has 8 less than the Torah. Tan Rabbanan V'Shinantam. What does it mean in Torah? It says you shall teach your children. The words of Torah need to be sharp in your mouth. That if somebody will ask you a question, don't mumble it. And say to him, you mean don't hesitate. You have to know it immediately. You have to know the Torah immediately, as it states. Shenamar on the top of 30b, and moral chachma chosiyat. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. V'omer, and it states. We're on the top of 30b. Kisharam al etzbosecha. Bind them on your fingers. Kasva maluach libecha. Write it on the board of your heart. V'omer kachitzim biyad gibor came b'nei anu rim. Like arrows in the hands of the mighty, so too are the youth of the children of the youth. What does it mean? V'omer chatzi gibor shinunim. The chitzei gibor shinunim. The arrows of the mighty are sharp. V'omer chatziyacha shinunim. Amim tachtacha yipul. V'omer ashrei hagever asher mileas ashpaso mehem lo yivoshi ki dabru esoivim bashar. Meaning to say, fortunate is the person, the teacher, who fills his bag with arrows. Meaning a lot of students. Rather than just sharpening your own arrows. My esoivim b'shar. What do we do? The enemy in the gate. Amar v'chia bar Abba. Afilu avu b'no aravu talmido she'oskim b'torah b'shar. B'shar echad nasim oivim zelazeh ve'ein zazim misham ad shenasim oivim zelazeh. Even if you have a father and a student, or teacher and a student, they're arguing the words of Torah. Obviously, you have to know how to argue properly with your teacher, with your father or your mother. But nevertheless, they if they're discussing Torah, they're not going to leave until they become oavim zelazeh, friends with each other, or lovers. People love each other. It says, as vive besufa, atakri besufa el besofa. In the end, there will be this love. Tana Rabbanan, and now also a little bit of a non sequitur, but since we're talking about the power of Torah, the Gemara says, "V'samtem," you shall place these words in your heart. Samtam, don't read it as samtem, read it as a pure drug. Nimshal Torah kesamachayim. The Torah is compared to the drug of life. The Torah is the drug of life, the elixir of life. Mashal Adam sheika beno maka gedola. It's like a parable of somebody who struck his son. His son was struck down with a very big wound, a big wound. And he put a tremendous bandage on it. As long as this wound is on your bandage, as long as this bandage is on your wound, eat what you want, drink what you want, and drink and bathe in hot or cold water. And you won't be afraid. If you remove the bandage, mala numi, it will bring up boils on you. Kadosh Baruch Hu Amar Lam Yisrael. This is what Hashem said to the Jewish people. B'ni, and we're going to come back to this passage on Shabbos Shuvah, God willing, and we'll study this in greater depth because it's such a powerful passage. We need to study slowly and carefully. So our Shabbos Shuvah shiurs will read this passage with all the commentaries. So he says, B'ni barasi yetzer hara barasi lo Torah. He says, my son, I created Yetzer Hara, and I created with it the Torah as a tavlin, as a spice to defeat it. If you're going to engage in Torah, you won't fall into the hands of the Yetzer Hara. If you don't study Torah, the Yetzer Hara will dominate you. As it says, sin crouches at the doorway. Not only that, the Yetzer Hara all day long is sitting there engaging in figuring out ways to try and attack you. It says, if you want, you could defeat him, as it says, Tan Rabbanan, Kasha Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer Hara is so strong, even the one who created the Yetzer Hara, i.e. God, calls it bad. As it says, Ki Yetzer Lev Adam Ramenu Rav. Amar Rav Yitzchak, Yetzro Shel Adam is Chadesh B'chol Yom. The Yetzer Hara of a man grows stronger against him every single day. Every single day, the Yetzer Hara tries to come up with new ways to attack us. It says, Rak Kol Yom. Amar Rabbi Shimon Levi, Yetzer Shel Adam is Gabro B'chol Yom Uvakish Amiso. Every day, the Yetzer Hara tries to come up with new ways to destroy us. It says, Sofer Rasha at Tzaddik. The wicked one looks for the Tzaddik, Uvakish Amiso, and looks for ways to try and kill him. If God wouldn't help him, then he would never be able to defeat him. We would never be able to defeat the Yetzer Hara, as it says, God will not abandon us to the Yetzer Hara. What do you do if you meet the Yetzer Hara on the street and you don't know how to defeat him? Pull him into the base medrash. If he's a stone, he'll melt. If he's iron, he'll shatter. As it states, thus my words are like fire, says God, and they are like a hammer breaking a rock. If he's a stone, he'll melt. It says, if you're thirsty, go to the water. The water is the Torah. They'll break the Yetzer Hara. And it says, the stones will be crushed by water. Asil Isha, father is required to marry off to find a wife for his son. Minoam, because it says, Tichsiv, Kechuna Hashem v'olidu banim. It says in the pasuk in Jeremiah, take for yourselves wives, give birth to sons and daughters. Uvanos, Chuv Nechem Hashem, Espenosechem, Tenua Hashem, and your daughters you should give to men. Bishlam up in the Obiyado. So the Gemara says, well, I understand why he's obligated to marry his son because he's able to do it. How's he going to marry off his daughter? It's not in his control. He has to find a guy who's willing to marry her. Obviously, a man has to find the girl who's willing to marry her, but it's the normal way. It's the commentaries was the man to be aggressive about searching for a wife. So the Gemara answers, this is what he says to them. He says, give her from my hand for food and supplies so that men will want to marry her. Whoever a man is responsible to teach his son a craft. He says, look with the life, with the woman that you love, with an actual, if it's an actual wife, then then just like you're obligated to find a wife for him, so too you're obligated to teach him a craft. But Isha can also be a reference to Torah. Because, or you could say, just like you're obligated to teach him Torah, so too you're obligated to teach him a craft. Some say you have to teach your son how to swim, because that can help him survive. Or he could teach, or it could be chiyusa. It's like teaching him how to fish. Whoever doesn't teach him Torah, a craft, is like teaching him to be a robber. But it's like you're teaching him to be a robber. Well, one of the difference between the two approaches is if you taught him business. So according to you, it's not enough. You have to teach him an actual craft, not just how to make deals. Every mitzvah of the father is on the son. What does that mean? If you want to say that this means every mitzvah that a father has to do to his son, nashim chayavos, that the women also have to do. But we know the mother is not obligated to circumcise her son or to redeem him. So I'm Rav Yehuda, what it means is called mitzvah sa'av. If any mitzvah of the father that's on the son to do to the father. Means to say the obligation of honoring the father is both on a man and a woman. Indeed, we have a bride that taught this. Isha. How do I know a woman has to do the mitzvah of honoring a father and mother? Because that's two. And came out Omer Ish. What does it say? A man. Ish sipek piyado asas. A man has the ability to do it always, but Isha, a woman, she when she gets married, she loses that ability. Her husband controls the checkbook, so she has to get his permission for spending money. That's the way it was done in those days. But let's say they get divorced, both the man and the woman have the equal obligation in honoring the father and mother if she's not married anymore. It says, honor your father and mother. Honor your Hashem with your wealth. Torah compares honoring your father and mother to honoring God to tell us, and the Torah also compares Ishva Akasav Moraz the Torah compares all father and mother to all of God. Nemar Mikalo Avivimo Mosimas, Nemar Ishki Kalel El Hav Vinasachato. So it's reference really to the cursing Bezin, but here the Gemara interprets it cursing God. And we see that the Torah compares one who curses their parents to one who curses God. Ishva Akasav Birkasav Ve'emo Birkasamakum. So, and Torah also compares blessing the father and mother to blessing the God. But with respect to the prohibition of striking a father and mother, then even though it's very strict, you can't compare them because how are you going to strike God? And And so too, that is how where the law applies. Meaning, say we compare honor and fear of our father and mother to God. Why? Because, excuse me, all three were partners in a person's creation. A man, a woman, and God are all partners in the creation of the child. We'll have to stop here, and God willing, we'll pick this up. God willing, at 8 a.m. we'll review it, and then again tonight. And obviously, we're going to focus on this for the Shabbat Shuvah shir. A big shkoyach to everybody.